So today's gonna be interactive. You guys gonna interact with us? Yes?
Yeah.
Awesome. Who is the sickest generation in this room? Anybody know? It's my generation. I used to not like to admit I'm a millennial, but I am. I'm a millennial. We're the sickest generation in modern history. According to a Blue Cross Blue Shield study of many million Americans, the millennial generation is the sickest generation in modern history. Our health is declining at the age of 27. It doesn't matter what you look like on the outside. It doesn't matter that you hire personal trainers and eat vegan and paleo, that you get adjusted, that you do these 5 essentials. Many of us are recovering so we do more of that than any other generation as millennials. Right, but we're still the sickest. We're recovering from 20 years, right, approximately on average, 20 to 30 years of toxicity, of edible food-like substances, of inflammation. And the things that millennials are sickest with are the silent killers, right? It's the chronic disease. Believe it or not, it's the heart disease. It's the cancer. The number one, other than trauma, the number one leading cause of death in children under 5 is cancer, right? And so anyway, it's the IBS. It's actually diabetes. It just is early enough to where it's not screaming at us or it's silent. So much so that there's this problem in the workplace that is called, it's called absenteeism. It means that you're showing up to work, but you're not present. It's a multi-billion-dollar loss in the workplace. You're showing up and you're not present because you're so distracted by migraine headaches or the constipation or the diarrhea or the numbness and tingling or the anxiety or the depression or the insomnia, right? You cannot continue to live this way. And if you are dealing with some of those things, today's the day that you've got to make a change. So when in our office, we are not introducing anything that's mind-blowing. Has anybody heard that you should eat apples instead of Twinkies before? Yes, okay. Do we all know that exercise is good for us? Yes, right? Do we all know that there's probably some toxins in life that we should avoid? Yes. Do we know that mindset is important, and when we're more anxious, we get sicker? Yes. Do we know that our nervous system is important? Yes. These are not mind-blowing things, right? But these are our 5 essentials, and these 5 things transform people's lives every single day. But it's not because they're new knowledge. The reason that they transform people's lives is that in our office, we help people put them in the right order. The order of healing is crucial. The order of healing is what our country is missing. The order of healing might be what you're missing because you're already probably doing a lot of these things. And if you put them in the right order, you violate certain core principles that have been true in the human body for thousands of years. The human body, evolutionarily speaking, over the last 1,000 years, hasn't changed much, right? The human body looks a little different. Well, maybe we're a little shorter in the 1800s. But, there was not a whole lot different in the human body. So what we want to do is we're going to bring you 2 things today. One is we're going to bring you the order that your body needs to go to heal. And 2, we're actually going to, in the second half of this seminar, we're going to walk you through a 90-day 3R protocol to actually heal and restore the gut. And we'll talk about why here in a second. But the order of healing, really, and you guys have been, who's been here to a dinner or a talk or a workshop in our office before? Awesome. All right. It's your first time, so maybe you guys can help me out. In our office, we talk about what is the true definition of health, right? So what are some things that you commonly hear when you say, hey, I want to be healthy. I know I'm healthy because I do blank or blank. Exercise, right? What else? Surfing.
Exercise.
That's good. That's a good why.
Thank you, Mark.
You eat healthy, right? You go to Whole Foods. A year and a half ago, you go to a salad bar, and if you ask somebody, hey, I know I'm healthy because I shop at Whole Foods, or you go to Gold's Gym, you ask them, hey, I know I'm healthy because I look good and I exercise, right? What do you think? What's the number one answer I get? I know I'm healthy because I feel good, right? What's the problem with judging your health by how you feel? It's normally too late, right? So I used to be a paramedic and worked in critical care, and 9 out of 10 people that have heart disease, the first symptom they feel is what? The heart attack, right? The chest pain, the numbness and tingling. That first symptom happens after 10 years of what building? Disease. And probably 10 years of dysfunction building before that even disease, right? Or cancer, right? What does cancer feel like? Not a lot until what? It's too late. That's when the symptoms of fatigue and stuff start creeping in. So we know that health is not how you feel. If you're a guest or a patient, go ahead and write out the word health and underline the first 4 letters. What does it spell? Heal. That's the definition of health. It's how your body heals and functions, right? So I want you guys to look up here at this chart. This is a function chart. So if we want to be healthy, we need to look at what controls all function in our body, right? And so if you're a patient, you know it's the brain, which we're going to talk about in a second, but other things also control function. And I want you guys to walk away with what are the dysfunctions in my health and what needs to change? Because when you fix the dysfunctions in your health, you become functional, right? And that function with time and energy and applying it together, all of a sudden you have health. So look at you, and I want you guys to rate yourself for a second. So 0 is almost dead. So 0 to 1, no one here is probably a 0 to 1 because we're not in a hospital right now, right? This is a poor quality of life. Your potential is extremely limited. All you're thinking about is surviving. Some of you might feel like you're close there, but none of you guys are a 0 or 1 yet. So many of us, though, might be in the disease category. We might be taking multiple medication. We've lost our quality of life. Our primary focus is all we're thinking about is the next medication we need to take, the next treatment protocol we need to do. This is a really rough place to be. The scariest place to be is these next two categories. And I would argue is actually, if you skip over, is this, the 7 or so. Many of us can probably resonate with the 5. We're not feeling great. We have inconsistent health habits. We're on medications. Health is not a high priority, but we want to feel better. That's actually an okay place to be because you know something's wrong. You know you don't want to keep going the other way because you're going to end up in a sick care model. And you're feeling bad enough to say, I want to get better, right? The scary place to be for me is the no active symptoms spot. This is when we're not feeling anything and we're just coasting. We have a good lifestyle, but it's inconsistent. Health is a priority, but we're still trying to figure out what we believe to be true about health. Could not be more relevant than any other time in history. What do we believe to be true about health? So here's the problem. If you look at the feeling good, no active symptoms, and you look at 10, we say we all want to be a 10, right? We all want to have optimal health. We want to be functioning at 100% because anything less than 100% is building what in the body? Disease, right? So we're not perfect, but we want to be pursuing this 10. So the scary thing happens is when you can lose almost 60% function before what happens? A symptom happens, right? You feel bad before you know something's wrong. And that's the scary zone. That's why I said a 7 or an 8 is kind of a scary place to be, or 6 and a 7, because you don't feel bad, but really you're not functioning at your potential, right? You're waiting to wake up to that pain in your chest or those cramps in your belly, or you're just trying to make it through that fatigue and you really are struggling. You probably do have symptoms, you're just ignoring it. And so today what we're gonna do is I want you to evaluate right now, maybe take a second, write down a number, where you're at, some of the attributes of it, and say, hey, I'm here, but today I'm gonna commit to take action steps to move there, right? And we actually probably gonna need to make a list for yourself of the action steps by the end of the day that you're gonna need to do to get to become a 10 or to pursue 10. And we're gonna define what a 10 looks like a little bit later. Yep. That's an awesome story. You know what's beautiful about that is we didn't do any of that for her. It's her body that did the healing, right? We were just removing the pressure. And so the first thing that we check, as Dr. Coy talked, is the nervous system. And the reason we led with this, I know many of you have heard this, is nothing else matters until you take care of this. So take care of it first. Because the question that's been floating around for thousands of years, since before the time of Jesus, is from the founder of modern medicine, Hippocrates. He said, all disease begins in the gut. So the question is, was he right? Well, at the time, they thought the nervous system was some like weird goo that kind of floated through the body. There wasn't really into the late 1800s, in early 1900s, that we had any understanding that it was electricity. Now what we've learned, though, is you actually have more nerve cells in your gut than you do in your nervous system. We've actually coined the phrase, 1998, an MD, can't remember his name, he wrote a great book, but he said that gut is the second brain because it has its own nervous system. It's called the enteric nervous system, right? So we have the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, which goes to your fingers, central nervous system's in your spine, and then the gut has its own nervous system. So he's not inherently wrong. You just gotta check the nervous system first, and in checking the nervous system, we're also checking that enteric nervous system and the nerves to the gut. And a lot of the healing has happened just from taking pressure off of the central nervous system and or relieving interference to the enteric nervous system. When you do have issues with the gut, these are some of the things on the left, some of the symptoms you might feel: upset stomach, sleep problems, fatigue, food sensitivity, bloating, digestive issues. You don't have to raise your hand. But the reality is, if we were to talk privately, I know, because I've talked to many of you, we're all dealing with this stuff, right? We're dealing with it, and it turns into the list on the right when those symptoms last, that dysfunction lasts for a while. That's when we start seeing the autoimmune diseases, which is one of the top leading diseases in those millennials I was talking about. Brain disorders, cognitive decline, cancer. 1 in 2 men are diagnosed with cancer or heart disease in their lifetime. It's a coin flip. 1 in 3 women, right? So the question is, why is it not going to be you today? Well, one, we're going to get our nervous systems checked. The second most important thing we check, I'm trying to change things on my computer. The second most important thing we check in the nervous system is the gut. And until the early 90s, if you ask a lot of your old school physicians, my family is filled with them, they would say the gut is just a tube. They actually learned in medical school that the gut is just a tube that things go out of. They could not have been more wrong, but this information is brand new. So when we're referring to the gut today, to be clear, we're not just, is it okay if we talk about poop today? You came to a gut health seminar, how can we not talk about poop? We're not just talking about poop, we're not talking about where poop comes out. We're talking about from your nose to your mouth, your esophagus, your stomach, your liver, your gallbladder, your pancreas, your small intestines, your large intestines. This is the gut, right? This is what we call the gut, right? And so your digestion starts when you smell food. Did you guys know that? That's why processed and fast food is so dangerous, is you don't have an opportunity to smell it while it's cooking, so the digestive enzymes in your body is not preparing to digest it. Isn't that crazy? Start smelling your food. There you go, tip number 1. Tip number 2 is digestion. The second place digestion starts is when it actually touches your mouth, right? You guys know what saliva is for? The salivary enzymes are the first digestive enzymes to break down your food. When you try and take whole food, push it through the stomach into the small intestines, you get inflammation, right? Arthritis, chronic joint pain is often caused, one of the causes is undigested proteins. Right? So chew your food. Who got a smoothie today? Did you chew it? You gotta chew your smoothies, right? You gotta chew your smoothies. Otherwise, your body doesn't know to break it down, right? So when we're looking at the gut, I want you guys to understand that we're talking about all of this. It's a very complex system, very complex, and it does a lot of things. We've talked about the gut-brain connection a little bit. We talked about checking the central nervous system. I'm so glad that we have CRC out there for counseling, because the number one place a lot of this gut issues start is where? The brain, right? The way the brain talks to your gut or your colon is through this black nerve. It's called the vagus nerve. You guys have heard of maybe the gut-brain connection before? So when we're healing the gut, we want to take care of the brain, we want to take care of the nervous system, and we want to take care of the gut, right? We got to work both sides, because as your brain, as you get anxious, anyone been anxious since last year or a little stressed? You're lying if you're not raising your hand. If you've been a little bit anxious, what happens when the kind of animalistic part of your brain, lower in your brain, gets really anxious is you get bloating and you get inflammation. So now we're gonna take turns, and every single one of you are gonna come up here and you're gonna recite the national anthem. If you had to do that, what would you feel? I'm not gonna make you sing, just recite it. You're gonna feel something in your tummy. Uh-oh, we're flying through slides. Wrong direction, we're going forward, not backwards today. You feel something in your tummy, right? You get those butterflies. We all know this is true, right? So as your gut becomes more inflamed, you get more anxious. As you become more anxious, your gut becomes more inflamed. The number one cause, second result of interference is often inflammation and cortisol and stress, right? So we gotta deal with all sides of this. How many of you guys know that 70 to 80% of your immune system is in your gut? Is the immune system important to anybody here? So if you're doing everything else that we're talking about in society, but you're not taking care of your gut, I don't really have to say it, right? You're missing the boat here, to say it nicely, right? We have to take care of 70-80% of our immune system is in our gut. Why 70-80% of our immune system in our gut? What is the thing that we're trying to spray and kill? Bacteria, viruses, pathogens, right? Guess what lives in your gut? Bacteria. So the number one way to fight bacteria and viruses is with healthy bacteria and viruses. So if you are sterile internally, guess what's going to populate and control your body? The bad ones, right? So don't tell me, I really don't want to hear anything about immunity until we're talking about the gut, okay? Fair? Fair. You can talk to your friends about it. I just don't want to hear about it. The small intestines, I don't have that slide up here, but so we've got, after it gets into the stomach, the liver and the gallbladder help break things down. It's going to enter the small intestines. This is the place where your body pulls all of the nutrients out and sends it to the rest of the body. So this is often the number one place to look when people are struggling with fatigue and chronic joint pain, when they're struggling with headaches, when they're struggling with scarier diseases, is if my body can't get the nutrients it needs to make thyroid hormone or to make serotonin, 90% produced in the gut, serotonin, by the way. epinephrine, whatever, you name it in the body. We need nutrients, we need vitamins, that's why we take them. If you have inflammation in your small intestines, you have very expensive urine. I know because I test a lot of your urine. You're peeing out a lot of your supplements, you're not absorbing it, and so you're spending all this money on these supplements that you're supposed to be absorbing, but you have so much inflammation and overgrowth, you're not absorbing any of it. You're really wasting your time and energy, so you're like, oh, these supplements don't work, I must be broken, I just need a drug, and I'm gonna take it for the rest of my life, right? I'm just a special case. No, the reality is you just haven't had someone to dig deep with you enough to get to the cause. So our small intestines is a key location of absorption of nutrients. We have to make sure there's not inflammation there before we buy expensive supplements, before we spend money on organic, grass-fed, pesticide-free food. You gotta get, well, part of that you need to heal this, but it's key, right? So if you're not absorbing nutrients, you're building dysfunction. If you're building dysfunction over time, what are you building? Dis-ease or disease, right? So start there. Who's heard of the microbiome? Right? So we don't need to really start there. The microbiome is, in the colon, we have a diverse ecology of bacteria and different creatures. You are 90 to 95% of your entire genetic makeup is not human cells. Or not genetic makeup, human bodies, not human cells. We're 3 times more viral cells than we are human cells. It makes you wonder who the host is, right? We have just as many bacteria cells, or a little bit more, than we do human cells in our body. That's crazy. Right? It seems like we should take good care of these guys because they're really the ones that are in control. And so the problem is we know these. So imagine a rainforest in your tummy, and or a whatever forest you like, an ecosystem. Right? That ecosystem is filled with good bacteria. You need good bacteria. A probiotic is not the solution to getting good bacteria. You need to stop killing the good bacteria. Right? We need to allow good bacteria to get into our body. That's what creates our internal body. Here's a great example of what we're going to be talking about.
Human intestines contain over 100 trillion microorganisms, forming gut microbiota, which help maintain several physiological processes, such as food digestion, immunity, and metabolism. External factors, like low-fiber diet or antibiotics, can create an imbalance in the microbiota called dysbiosis, characterized by a decrease in beneficial bacteria, an overgrowth of opportunistic pathogens, and reduced microbial diversity. Saccharomyces boulardii produces 3 different kinds of proteins against these toxins. It prevents pathogenic bacteria from invading the intestinal epithelium by causing the bacteria to adhere to mannose on its cell wall, and by preserving the tight junctions between epithelial cells. Saccharomyces boulardii increases short-chain fatty acids, providing an energy substrate for epithelial cells.
Those
and
tall
normalizes the
things
intestinal flora
are like the
depleted by
trees of your
antibiotic
rainforest.
therapy. By increasing IgA levels, Saccharomyces boulardii enhances the immune defenses against external pathogens. Finally, Saccharomyces boulardii decreases the secretion of pro-inflammatory cytokines, like IL-8 and TNF-alpha, protecting from gut inflammation. Based on numerous clinical studies, Saccharomyces boulardii CNCM I745 demonstrates...
Who's waiting for the list of things that will kill you?
May cause.
Kind of seems like a drug commercial. May cause early death, early death, paralysis, and more early death. That's what most of the drug commercials. There's none of that here, right? We're just looking at normal anatomy and physiology. Do you guys know all that was in your tummy? That's pretty amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Those tall columnar cells are like the trees of your rainforest, and then they have branches, right? Those branches are what absorb the nutrients, right? Okay, when those, the problem happens when there's disruption or chaos in the jungle. When the big machines come in, cutting all the trees down, when the fires break out, when the houses are starting getting built, when modern man starts interfering with something that has been fine for thousands of years. This is called dysbiosis when we're talking in the gut, or it's a disruption. And what we know about this is that the ecology or the normal, we can actually look at the health of your gut, just like we look at the health of a rainforest, and we can actually predict whether you will get colorectal cancer. Not we specifically, but the medical community. And what we also know is that your gut bacteria can predict things like whether you're going to develop hypertension or can cause hypertension. Diabetes, type 2 diabetes, fatty liver disease, thyroid disease, many types of cancers, fibromyalgia, the list goes on, right? The list goes on. You need a healthy gut. So the question is, I guess, so there's a hypertension study in case anyone want to know. the thing what we need to look at is, so we know that our gut does a lot of really important things, and we know it needs to be healthy. But if we're going to heal it, we got to first look at what's interfering with its health.
Yeah, the first step is to remove the interference, right? So what we have to do is stop putting things inside of our body that are going to kill this good bacteria, right? And so what it says up here is bomb the city, right? The allopathic approach, which is the symptom-based approach that Western medicine uses primarily, they're bombing our cities. And what does that mean? What do we take now more than ever for bacterial infections? And now there's bacteria that's actually resistant to these things, right? It's antibiotics, right? I don't even need you to raise your hand whether or not you've taken an antibiotic. Everybody here has been exposed to antibiotics. Now, the problem is that what they are calling antibiotics is more like an A-bomb, like an atomic bomb. Why do they call an antibiotic an A-bomb? Is because when you take antibiotics, it doesn't only kill the bad bacteria, but it also kills the good bacteria. It does not discriminate between the good and the bad, right? And so if we know that you need a diverse ecology, a diverse different types of bacteria in the gut, we have to start looking at where this is coming from. And I guarantee you, I've seen it happen before. Saw it happen with a friend recently. She had a bacterial infection, and her family's like, you have to get antibiotics, you have to get antibiotics, and you have to get antibiotics. And look, I'm not here to tell you whether or not to get antibiotics, but I'm here to tell you that there's a way that your body will heal naturally. Now, one thing that was happening with her is that she actually had what was like a cyst on her knee. And so we have to wonder, with the body's infinite wisdom, because her family said to pop it, right? With the body's infinite wisdom, why would it create a border around an infection? Why would it wall off an infection? To protect it, to prevent it from spreading. So is the answer to go in there and to puncture it and let it spread everywhere, right? And of course, when you go to your doctor and you're under that care, they're going to do what they do in a very methodical way. But we have to just take a step back and say, do I need, right? Because you have the ability to make a choice for yourself. You have to ask the question, do I need to take antibiotics, right? Because we have to always weigh the pros and cons to what we're doing, right? Every single decision, there's pros and there's cons. And so for those of you that run to the doctor and get antibiotics every time, when was the last time that you tried something natural? When was the last time that you had that certainty and say, you know what, I'm going to let my body heal? And what ended up happening in this friend who had that cyst is the cyst naturally opened up when it was ready, right? And what came out was actually a bunch of white pus. It's like really nasty, right? But what was that white pus? What was it? It was toxins that were also bound to the immune system, right? So what she found was that her immune system was actively working inside of there and that her body healed when it was ready to. And so again, my question for you is that if you're always running to antibiotics, number one, do you know the risks? Research has shown that children under the age of 4 that have an antibiotic, they will never get the same amount of gut bacteria ever in their life. Under the age of 4. So how many, don't raise your hand, how many of you have kids, how many growing up, we always had ear infections, got an antibiotic, right? Did you know that over 90% of ear infections are not bacterial, but they're viral? Antibiotics do nothing for viral infections. They do nothing, right? They're only there for bacteria, but how many people have gone to a doctor and received an antibiotic before any testing was even done? They say, oh, I'm pretty sure I know what it is, so just take this in the meantime, and while we send it to the lab, then we'll confirm it for you, right? So whoever you're taking your advice from is literally giving you a pill that's killing your internal flora, and what research is showing now that it takes a minimum of 6 to 12 months to rebuild to where you were before. So then my question is, you take an antibiotic, you're more susceptible to disease, your digestive system is disrupted. What are you more prone to, again, is having another infection, going back to the doctor, and you see how the cycle perpetuates, right? And at some point you have to interject in that process and say, how can I rebuild my gut flora as quickly as possible? How can I eliminate the things that are continually causing it so I can get healthy and well, so that my immune system is functioning the way that it needs to, so that my body can make neurotransmitters like serotonin, help me sleep, makes melatonin, right? Help many different pathways in the body through the gut. And antibiotics is just one way that we cause damage to the gut. And as Dr. Peter mentioned, that our gut microbiome, or our intestinal lining, what you should know is that it's not a flat tube. But again, when we saw in those videos, we saw what are called finger-like villi, and they're kind of waving like here. So why would it not be a flat tube? Why would we have these finger-like villi? Is to actually increase the surface area in order to increase the absorption of things. So if you imagine the inside of your intestine like a bunch of trees, what antibiotics do when we eat artificial foods, which we'll talk about later, when we eat edible food-like substances and there are toxins around us, it actually mows, and imagine trees falling flat. So it covers up the areas that are actually supposed to be absorbing, and it does, and it becomes more like a tube. So we have to, have that visualization and say, how can we do this, right? So real quick, let's just talk about inflammation, because when I say inflammation, what we know is that every root of disease has inflammation. Let me say that a different way and more clearly. At the root of every disease is an inflammatory process. But we have to ask, is this inflammation a good thing or a bad thing? Because most of the time we associate inflammation to be bad. But tell me this, if you rolled your ankle and your ankle started to swell and it caused you to not be able to walk on it, is that a bad thing or a good thing? Why would your body intentionally swell your ankle to protect it? It's saying, hey, don't walk on me right now. Just relax for a few days, right? Relax for days or weeks, right? And so our body has an immune response or an inflammatory response to every bad thing that happens. And that's necessary. If you were to roll your ankle and more blood flow did not go to your ankle would not heal as fast. And so again, it's the inborn internal mechanisms of your body to send inflammation or increase blood flow. So we have to know that inflammation in itself is not a bad thing. But where does inflammation become bad? Inflammation becomes bad when it's there day after day after day after day, right? Some of the newest mechanisms for cancer, what they're finding out is that cancer is a wound mechanism, is a wound healing mechanism. Meaning that if you worked out and after the time working out, what would you develop right here? A callus, right? If you didn't develop a callus and you kept on working out, what would start to happen? You just kept doing it over and over and over. It would wear away at the skin and eventually you'd get to the bone. And would that be good or bad for your body? So is the callus a bad thing or a good thing? So when we see that symptoms are present, symptoms of inflammation, swelling, right? We have things here, blood sugar imbalance, chronic stress, things that happen, the reactions that our bodies have. We have to see it for what it is, understanding that when you have these symptoms over and over, it's the inflammation being there isn't the issue. It's the continual inflammation that's there that's the issue, right? And again, asking the question, why is my body not healing? Because if your ankle was swollen for a year straight, I would ask, why is your body not healing, right? So if you have constipation, diarrhea, ulcerative colitis, IBS, these things go on. Again, it's just asking the right questions. And so, these are more consequences of inflammation. Again, talking about every single symptom that you have is a reaction to what you've been doing constantly to your body.
So what happens when you leave inflammation long-term in the gut world? You guys have heard of the term leaky gut. It's becoming pretty popular. It was frowned upon if you went to your medical doctor really 10 years ago, but especially 5 years ago and said, hey, I might have leaky gut. They'd look at you like, you're a crazy hippie. Now what we know is that in the literature they describe this and they call it intestinal impermeability, aka leaky gut. So this is a pretty scary and serious thing because leaky gut happens when you combine this process with inflammation, you see disease. And you just see disease turn into very scary things that you don't really like to talk about, and for many of you, that's why you avoid the doctor. So leaky gut, what happens, if you guys can imagine a fishing net. I was going to bring a fishing net, but imagine a net, and that net is designed in your colon wall to, and your small intestines to keep the good things in, the bad things out, and the bad things out, and the good things in. Specifically, when you think about your poop, who wants their poop in their bloodstream? Nobody. Your poop needs to stay in your colon and then in the toilet, right? But who wants nutrients in their bloodstream? Yeah, a lot of us want nutrients and supplements. So what happens is when your gut lining becomes inflamed, it's like cutting giant holes in the net of the colon, causing the bad stuff to get out and keeping the good stuff from going in and out as it's supposed to. Does that make sense? So as a result, we feel really bloated every time we eat because our food isn't actually assimilating and getting into our bloodstream the where it needs to go, right? It's just kind of hanging out in there. We also seem to have allergies to wheat and soy and dairy and sometimes avocados and almonds, and it's like, where do all these food sensitivities come from, right? And you think you might be gluten intolerant, right? Because that's the latest fad. Yes, you can truly have a gluten sensitivity. I give that, but sometimes it's not the gluten's fault. Sometimes that's just a very inflammatory food, and your gut is so hurt that it can't handle and mitigate that thing. So even some of the current literature is even saying, hey, wait, slow down. If we're going to test for food sensitivities, that's fine. But really, those sensitivities can change. What we really need to do is heal the gut. We need to get to the cause to fix it. And so if you, leaky gut plus inflammation, I'm again changing the wrong thing, leads to something called SIBO. This is very well talked about in the literature. Who's heard of SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth? Hang in with me, I know we're getting sciencey. We're taking a break in just a second. SIBO is one of the diseases that truly affects the absorption of nutrients in your colon, and this is at the root of a lot of disease processes that you guys are struggling with. So what is it? Very simply, this chart is super simple. Top, that's normal, okay? That normal is, you're looking where it's a simple phrase, but on the far left, we have the duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. Those are your small intestines, right? That's this part of your body that starch, beans, nutrients, that's where your body is taking things that have been broken down into your stomach and absorbing nutrients or vitamins like B vitamins, magnesium, and pulling it out and using it to heal your heart, into your lungs, and your thyroid, and your brain, right? Then eventually, after you absorb all that stuff out, it gets to the colon, and what's left in the colon? Just the stuff you want to get rid of, and then your healthy microbiome, right? The fiber, the bacteria. Okay, we want to keep the bacteria in the pooper, in the colon. We want to keep it out of the small intestines. It's supposed to be a sterile environment, right? So SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, means your small intestines is overgrown with bacteria, right? You're like, okay, that's in the name, I get it. But so what happens is when you have inflammation or leaky gut or intestinal impermeability, there's so much inflammation that there's not a delineated line between your colon and your small intestines, and you get all this bacteria that's supposed to stay in the colon starts creeping into the small intestines, and so now you have a somewhat sterile environment that is not sterile anymore, right? And so what's coming into that is not good bacteria, but the bad bacteria, right? That's where we hear things like candida, and we hear things, well, there's a long list of funguses and bacteria that can overgrow there. But so in order to heal this, we need to stop what's causing this leaky gut, intestinal permeability, or inflammation in the gut. And we need to clear out the bad bacteria and reduce the inflammation so that the body can then absorb nutrients again. And when your body can absorb the magnesium, the B vitamins, the vitamin D, the calcium, et cetera, then the dysfunctions in the rest of the organs are being fixed, and you start to see the body heal itself, right? And now you're starting to see what Hippocrates said, all disease begins in the gut. I don't know how he came up with that, because he didn't know any of this, but anyway, you can make your own predictions. He figured it out pretty early. So what we know is, so H. pylori we've blamed for causing acid reflux. What we've actually learned, instead of eradicating H. pylori, which we've decided that causes acid reflux, we've actually learned that it's a very important bacteria for our gut microbiome. Same thing with your, anyone has ever had your appendix removed? We used to say, oh, it's an extra organ, there's really no purpose for it. You learn that in medical school. Why would you have an extra organ that has no purpose? Does that make sense? Right, you went from 2 cells to 70 trillion in your mother's womb without any outside interference. Do you think like something just accidentally showed up in your body? It's just ridiculous. And now we know that it's a key to this microbiome. So the question is, if you do have this SIBO, if you do have small intestinal overgrowth, or maybe you just have inflammation, I guarantee you, if you've had a pulse and lived in the last year and a half, you have bad bacteria growing in your body, and you're over-sterilized internally. Because what have we been doing? Right? We're killing all the bacteria that we're exposed to, right? Which I know there's a balance. But in the effort to kill the stuff we don't like to talk about from stage, we've been trying to preserve, or an effort to kill those things, we've also killed all the good guys, right? It's like your house is burning, it's on fire, and you see the guy that committed arson running away. Well, before you go catch him, you're like killing the firefighters. It's terrible. Don't do that. They're there to save your life. Don't kill the things that are there to save your life. I know that hits hard. I used to be one. Thank you for all of you guys that are. But we're attacking the good guys. And if that hits home in your heart and kind of hurts a little when I say that, I hope it does, because you need to feel it. You're killing the good guys, and so we need to look at alternatives and ways to heal. So the question is it possible to heal? So we're going to take a break, and after the break, we're going to dive into, it's going to be super simple. It's going to be 50 minutes. We're going to dive into 3-step process to heal this thing. So we have our 5 essentials. We call them essentials for a reason. They're not options. They're crucial, and we talked about the order. So far, the order we have brain health, right? Dr. Cody talked about a word called subluxation. That starts in the nervous system. The number 1 subluxation that needs to be corrected is in the brain, meaning we have to deal with the trauma, the emotional stuff we've dealt with in life. So as you guys are coming in here, we look at your note paper, and if you can, divide it into 3 sections. So we're going to go over the 3 R's of rebuilding and healing the gut. On your paper, the first R that we're going to dive into when it comes to gut health. The first R, the 3 R's, is remove. So the first R is to remove. So this is the number one principle in all of health and all of life, is that we're going to, number one, remove the interference. Because it doesn't matter how many probiotics we take, digestive enzymes we take, how much kale we eat, if there's interference, or we're constantly retoxifying, or we're continually to keep our hand on a burning stove, right? If your hand is burning on a stove, or you've got a rubber band on your hand, you can't just take a bunch of supplements and leave your hand on the stove. You got to take your hand off the stove. You got to remove your hand from the stove. So the first R we're going to dive into is the remove R. So let's talk about the things that we need to be removing. I'll tell you what, if you walk away thinking that these gut health, that you're going to heal your gut, but you are only imagining supplements or food, you're going to lose. It's a losing game. We really have to look at this holistically, and you have to apply this. So what that means is that a gut protocol, or the 3 R's, can't be overwhelming. If it's overwhelming to you, then it's going to stress you out. And if you're stressed out, guess what's going to become inflamed? Your gut. So this is not overwhelming. Say it to yourself, this is not overwhelming. Simple steps, simple action steps. We're going to start with the number one thing that we need to remove, and that's the mental stress. And it's not, guys, I don't know, maybe you guys have more influence than I do. If you do, we need to talk, because I've got some tips. We all want our current political, medical, I don't even know what to call that world right now. We want, there's a lot of junk happening in the world, a lot of evil, a lot of bad stuff that we can't do anything about, for the most part, right? There's stress coming in, constantly coming into our lives, and there's nothing we can do, but we can choose how do we respond to it, right? And it's really important that if you view this protocol as overwhelming, or you're feeding the fear from the news, or you're feeding the drama from your social media, or you're feeding the social, we used to teach our kids not to gossip. Now we just got to get them off the phones, right? It's not talking about people in person anymore. It's just absorbing just junk after junk after junk. And what hormone spikes under stress? Cortisol. Cortisol is the number one thing that is killing you from a hormone perspective. It is killing us. Cortisol in a very short burst is awesome. Right? That's that runner's high you feel, that workout feel, that hey, let's go, let's get some stuff done. Today's the day that my life changes, my health changes. But the problem is we weren't made to live in this mode that it never stops, and it's go, 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 and deadlines and bills, and social media says I need to click now, I need to like this, and I need to purchase this, and if I don't do it right now, then I'm not a good person, and now I'm letting these people go hungry here, and my political party, it's we go, 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 go. You're dying, 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 dying. We got to stop. We gotta stop. We gotta remove that crap from our life. We have to start controlling what we can control. And I think one of the best things is just to turn the screens off, right? Do you guys know what happens? Have you guys ever tried to delete an app on your phone? Let's try it. What do I need to delete here? Facebook, of course. So when I push it, what does it do? It does this. What else does that when you stop it? Drugs. Cocaine. That's how you act when you're coming off cocaine, right? There's a reason for it, that thing shakes when you're about to delete it. So just do it now and walk away from it. Or better yet, just turn the phone off. Anyway, so we got to deal with this stress, because if we're not turning the screens off, we're not turning the news off, the rest of the stuff is about a waste of time. So we're going to talk about management or solutions, not problems. So we're going to control what we can and carve out you time. That's not carve out your time. It's make time for you. That's self-care time. Self-care time. Number one thing that happens when the oxygen mask comes down is they tell you to do what? Put it on yourself first. So then what? Help others. I used to say that when I wasn't a parent. I'm like, maybe I just don't really get it. But I understand the stress. You want to take care of everyone else around you. We have thousands of you a month that we're wanting to try and take care of, but you can't take care of the people you love and care about if you don't take care of you. The next one is make it habitual. This might be a writer downer. You ready? Your habits dictate your habitat. If you're a patient, you've probably heard me say this several times. Your habits dictate your habitat. We can apply this to the gut. The habitat of your gut is made up by your habits. The habitat of your health, your body. If you're not happy with your habitat, change your habits. There's not a miracle drug, a miracle supplement, a miracle one-liner I'm going to say here that's going to change it. The only way things change is if you apply simple action steps, baby steps over time, habit after habit. That's what's going to yield the massive transformation. So you might need to make a list of habits while you're here on your notes that you're crossing out and replacing right? We're removing this is the first R, if you're just coming in, we're removing. This is the R for removing. We're removing the bad things of our life. So we're gonna need to remove maybe the habits of Facebook and Instagram or the news or whatever like thing that you're following to stay current. There's gotta be another option, and you might not need to do it forever, but we're gonna remove those things.
Yeah, it all starts with mindset. When we talked about subluxation is anything that interferes with your natural body's ability to heal. And when sometimes we say that the biggest subluxation is above C1, it's above this bone, right? It's in the mindset, so we have to correct that first. But also, your habits make your habitat. So what sort of habits do you have as far as your nutrition? Is it good or is it okay, right? When we ask patients, what are you doing for your nutrition? They're like, oh, I'm just doing a little bit here, doing this. It's okay, right? If I ask, you guys, what do you do for workouts? Unless somebody tells me I go to this place 3 times a week, I go there Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I do this for myself on this day, right? Unless you guys have a plan for your nutrition, you're probably not doing as well as you could be, right? And so we have to go back to principles here because we're inundated right now with fads. Right? What we know is that fads come and go, but principles last a lifetime. And so we have to look at principles, right? Are we eating good food or are we eating God food? Was it grown from plants or was it made in a plant, right? You have to realize that if the food that you are eating does not rot, then you will rot. But if your food does rot, then you will live, right? So I have some patients that say, Dr. Cody, I don't want to buy all these green things because they just rot in my fridge. And I say, what else are you eating? You're buying it and not eating it, right? And so, we have to understand that, if you cut an apple in half and you leave it on the counter for an hour, what happens to it? If you cut a Twinkie in half and you leave it for an hour, what happens? It's still a Twinkie. It's still there, right? And so if the food that you're eating is not expiring, then there is an issue. So we're going to go through top 5 foods to avoid to help you remove the interference in your gut. And the first one is got to be sugar and artificial sweeteners. So the newest research and studies are showing that the average American consumes over 160 pounds of sugar, of processed and added sugar every single year. But it's not just sugar, right? Because guys, we know about stevia, we know about xylitol and certain things that we can, alternatives that we can sweeten our foods and our drinks and our smoothies with, but we have to really focus on artificial sweeteners. What's there? What are the main colors of the packets that are sitting on the table at the restaurant? You got the pink and the yellow and the blue, right? There's NutraSweet, there's Splenda, and whatever that other one is, right? What we're finding out right now is that these artificial sweeteners, they're 200 to 300 times sweeter than sugar itself. And when you look at all the research of the studies of people trying to lose weight, more people actually lost weight on regular Coke than they did Diet Coke. And what did they attribute it to? They attribute it to the increase in the want for sugar. It's the want for sugar. When we're consuming things that are much sweeter than what's naturally supposed to be in front of us, then we're always going to go back to it. Because you're drinking your Diet Coke and you're doing fairly well, but all of a sudden you're craving pasta and crackers and all these cereals and all these grains that are going to break down into sugar extremely quickly. So you think, I'm doing a pretty good job because I'm getting the diet drink. But what is it making you do more and want more is more sugar. So we have to cut that out. And on top of that, just going back to that last slide there, is that there's actually been research that shows that these artificial sweeteners, including Splenda and aspartame, disrupt the gut microbiome. So you're trying to do these things, these good things for your health, but it's doing the exact opposite for your health. So the next category that we're going to look at is gluten, right? And as Dr. Peter said, it might not necessarily be all forms of gluten that cause all sorts of inflammation in your body, but we have to understand there is not one person in the past year that has not had damage to your gut. There's not one person.
I want to jump in there real quick. What I meant to talk about in the mindset portion just a second ago is what we know is one stressful day will cause dysbiosis or disruption in your microbiome because the average bacterial life in the colon is about 20 minutes. So you have 72 lifetimes of a bacteria in a single day, right? And so that cortisol and that dysbiosis and that just the external stress is happening, and then you add the inflammatory stress of your vacation meal, your pizzas, your sugars, your other things, and it's the compounding effect. So when we look at a year and a half of what we've all been through, assuming everything else was perfect in your life, a year and a half, we've all got some work to do. So there's not a single person in this room that does not need to be doing at least a gut reset, but probably all of us need to be doing a gut healing protocol for the next 90 days.
But there's so much, I mean, gluten, okay, so it's not the same type of gluten as it was 2,000 years ago. I actually brought this book up. A patient mentioned to me about Dr. Josh Axe. He's a pretty well-known chiropractor who's actually in Max Living, the same network of doctors that we're in. We went to school with his brother. But he has this book called Eat Dirt, and he talks a lot about this. He talks a lot about gluten and that it has this form of protein in it called zonulin, and when you ingest gluten and it breaks down in your small intestines, the zonulin, I think about it like zones. It actually creates the leaky gut. It creates the zones to where now the proteins that were supposed to pass along and go, to the bathroom, now those undigested proteins are getting in your blood. And again, as we talked about with leaky gut, is that it's not just a gut issue, but if that stuff gets in your gut, then wherever those proteins are, your immune system is going to be attacking that. And if it happens to be on the thyroid, then you might have something called Hashimoto's thyroiditis, right? If it's in other areas, you might be dealing with lupus, or you might be dealing with rheumatoid arthritis, or eczema, or psoriasis. And again, we have to look back at the gut. So my recommendation, we're going to be giving some recommendations at the end of paths that you can take, and what you should be focusing on in each one of these phases. But on the remove phase, the first thing to do is just to cut gluten out. And that's going to be hard for a lot of people.
So the solution is not to go to the gluten-free section and just shop, because that is filled with processed food. And what do they replace the gluten with? The other things that you could probably write down: corn, wheat, soy, dairy. You want to remove those things, corn, wheat, soy, dairy, during the remove phase for at least 30 days if you're doing this protocol, or ideally 90 days if you're healing it. Not a little bit, right? What happens when we just eat a little bit? It's not that you did bad and shame and like you broke your diet, but if your gut's inflamed, it's like a wound, right? It's like an open, festering wound. And we just have a few corn chips or a little bit of this or a little bit of that. We're irritating, we're scratching it, we're making it worse. Now I'm gonna give you a little bit of grace. You don't need to be paranoid, because what do we talk about like contacting anything as long as you don't have a true gluten allergy, and avoiding corn, wheat, soy, and dairy. I talked about not being overstressed in the mindset part. So the reality is that's where the supplements really save the day. They give you about a 30% margin to screw up, to mess up while you're healing.
Not margarine.
No, we're not eating margarine. Margin. I can't even say it now. Margin. So you got a 30%. So there's grace for you. There's grace for it, but we don't. Dr. Cody likes to say you don't have to be perfect. You just need to be awesome. So we're gonna take the next 30 to 90 days, and we're all gonna be awesome.
There you go. All right, next thing, conventional meats. All right, we talked about antibiotics. How bad are antibiotics? Boo, bad, right? Do you know where we get the majority of antibiotics? 80% of the antibiotics that you consume come from your conventional meat, right? That's ordering from normal restaurants. So when you're going out, you're ordering steak, you're ordering chicken, you're ordering tacos down the street, all right? Whatever meat you're eating, you aren't what you ate only. You are what you ate, and you are what you eat had injected into it, right? And so you have to understand that with conventional meats, if you've seen conventional farming right now, it's not good conditions. And so what happens is, as the cows and as these animals are eating corn, wheat, soy, grains, right? The pigs are eating leftover Halloween candy. I'm sure you guys have seen that. It's crazy what goes into the food supply, but what happened, what would your body be like if every single day you ate corn, wheat, and soy only, and it was packaged in little kibbles and you just ate that? Like, would you be healthy? And so you would tend to get sick, and if you got sick, you went to the doctor and they would give you more antibiotics over and over, right? So the same exact thing, you have to eat healthy meat, because if you eat sick meat, then you become sick, because the meat that you eat will break down not only into amino acids and whether or not it's good or bad, but what also comes along is trace amount of antibiotics. And so if you're always sick, if you're always dealing with these issues, one of the first things that you have to do is replace your meats. Sometimes it goes. Some people choose to not eat meat for a little bit, right? And I think there's a time and a place, and there's plenty of other protein sources. But if you are eating conventional meat, that's the first thing, is you have to get that to change, because again, 80% of the antibiotics that you are exposed to come directly from there.
I think about following the money here. The farmers are going to make more money off a fat cow, right? So they're going to do everything they can to make it fat.
Yeah.
So what are you doing? You're doing everything you can to make yourself fat and sick and nearly dead, like the cows, right? So who makes money off of you? Follow the money. It's pretty, all the farmers, but I mean, people make money off of keeping you sick, just like we make and fat and nearly dead. So it's a little bit jaded, but it's real life. So know your farmer.
Point is that you have a decision to make, and you have action, right? And so a very tangible step is, when you go out to eat, just don't order meat. Ooh.
Oh, no. We'll get to those later.
We're going to get to those later. It's a long story. We'll explain later. But when you're going out to eat, just don't eat meat, right? But I'm not saying not ever, right? There's vacation meals. Please have grace for yourself. But for a long, long time, right, I only ate meat at my house because I had control over where that meat came from, right? Organic, grass-fed, free range, those sorts of things. Yes, it does cost a few extra dollars, but is your health worth it? One visit to the hospital could cause you thousands of dollars, and the number one cause of bankruptcy right now in the United States is due to chronic medical bills, right? And you think, oh, it's not gonna be me, it's not gonna be me, it's not gonna be me until it is you, right? So spend a few extra dollars. You're gonna pay one way or another. If you pay now, you're gonna enjoy health for the rest of your life, and you're gonna be able to do all the things that you've been called to do, and be able to walk your son down the aisle and be able to see your grandkids, right? But if you don't, and it's not that worth it to you, then you're gonna have to pay at some point in the future, right? So next food that we are going to remove is damaged or altered fats. Who here, so we talked about margarine, right?
Yep.
Margarine is an altered fat. When they put margarine and butter on a plate and they put it outside, which one did all the ants go to? Butter. They went away from the margarine. Why? Because it is man-made, it is processed, and it's hydrogenated fats. And so when things are shelf stable, how the heck does something stay on the shelf for a whole year? It's because the thing that oxidizes it or makes it go rancid, right? The same process that an apple has when you put it on the counter, you cut it and it turns brown. That's called oxidation. And so the same oxidative process also happens in everything that has some form of fat in it, right? So the crackers that you get in the store, they were made with sunflower oil or canola oil or peanut oil or something like that, right? And so the quality of the fat will determine how quickly it oxidizes or how shelf stable it is. And so what we know, and we're gonna have a Nutrition 101 coming up in 2 weeks, and there's a page in your packet to sign up for that, and I really encourage you to be there to know exactly what fats, but there's a list of fats that will oxidize very quickly. And what producers do and manufacturers is they take these fats that would be unstable and would oxidize really quickly, and they chemically process them to make them shelf stable so that the food will last longer. But a lot of the times it's not even only in processed food. Some of you guys have things like Wesson vegetable oil at your house. You have peanut oil, safflower oil, right? These are examples of things that will cause inflammation in your body. And we typically want to go towards things like coconut oil, avocado oil, and extra virgin olive oil just as a starter. I know I spoke really quickly in there, but we have to eliminate those other fats.
There's that list here.
Thank you, Dr. Peter.
Dr. Cody made this. Isn't this awesome? It's like an entire book on a page. But you got your healthy fats and the damaged fats. My question, Dr. Cody, is how bad are damaged fats really for you?
Yeah, so we have to, we talk a lot about sugar. Sugar. Avoid sugar. I'm going on a low carb diet, right? But healthy or damaged fats are as bad, if not worse, than the constant overload of sugar that we have. And what you just very simply put is that an altered fat, if it is oxidized, if you're eating something that's either been chemically altered or you're cooking with oils and you're turning it way too, and it's spattering right way too high, then that means that it's oxidized. And one of the biggest causes of cancer is called a reactive oxidative species, ROS. And what it does is when you put these altered fats inside of your body, it actually it pulls from your antioxidant system, which we're also going to talk about. Your liver has this ability to detox, and it does so using antioxidants. And so every bite that you take, every bit of oxidized oil or altered or damaged fat that you consume pulls away from your antioxidants. And if your body's spending all the time it has trying to overcome all the damage that you've been doing to it, what about when it needs to heal from cancer? But all the resources are going here because of your lifestyle, but what about healing from cancer? Right? And we see that we only have a certain pool of antioxidants to pull from. And again, just very simply put, is that altered fats pull your antioxidant system away from that. So we have to remove them.
So what we did for the last at least 60 years is we had this war on fats, right? So we said, hey, all fats are bad. Let's get rid of them. And what they're talking about are these fats, right? And they're right. But what happened is we removed all fats from our diet. And when you look, they forgot to look at normal physiology again. 70% of your brain is fat. The myelin sheath that allows conduction to happen through the nervous system is fat. Your hormones are derived of fat. The good cholesterol in your body is fat. When you look at your cell, there's actually, when we do this metabolic testing, we're actually looking at the health and vitality of a cell. And when you look at a cell, what surrounds the cell is a double layer of what? Fat. So do you want a double layer of that kind of fat? Or do you want a double layer of avocados? Or a double layer of coconuts? Or a double layer of healthy fats, right? Of olive oil that's not heated. So that double layer allows nutrients to get in and toxins out. You're fighting upstream. So let's talk about some solutions. Yeah? Solutions. So we talked about, if we look at the stomach, right, here, this roll of the stomach, it's filled with something called acid. Regardless of what those drug commercials tell you, you need acid in your stomach, and the cause of acid reflux is not too much acid. If you don't have acid in your stomach, you're not breaking down food, right? But what happens when we talked about smelling and salivating is the digestive process starts with smelling and cooking your food. So again, it's why processed food is so scary. It's why fast food is so scary. I even call my smoothies my fast food because I can't smell it, and it's technically a processed form of food, right? And you're not chewing it. So you can't heal any part of the gut if you're not breaking down food. So again, we're gonna start smelling our food. If you don't like to cook, we've got a great vendor back there with Ingrid who will come to our house, teach you to cook. If you're telling me you don't have time to cook, what you're actually just telling me is it's not a priority to you. And that's okay. If it's not a priority to you, it's not a priority. Eventually it will become a priority, right? So it's just meaning you have not made time to cook, right? Or you just need some help. So go get some help. Go get a coach. Come to our shop with the doc. Learn to cook. You can do it. Smell your food. We're also going to chew our food, and we learn to chew our what today? Our smoothies, right? Also eating while you're on the go. Our team is growing and getting better at this. We tend to eat fast in our office, and what it does is it causes a cortisol response, which causes inflammation. And so if we have inflammation in our stomach and our gut, we're not absorbing nutrients, and so we're technically starving to death. Right? So when you're eating non-food or edible food-like substances, you're starving to death. You're overfed, you're undernourished. You might not look like you're starving to death, but you're starving to death because you're not getting those nutrients into your body. Your body is dying, and you're literally just setting the clock, right?
I just have a quick testimonial on this. So we're going to be introducing some testing that we do in the office, and it's really amazing. And we've seen hundreds of patients' lives changed and thousands around the country. But these digestive enzymes, so the digestive enzymes help your body break food down so that you don't get big pieces of protein in your small intestines, so it doesn't cause that inflammation. And so I did the metabolics testing. I found that there was undigested proteins in my blood. I told Dr. Peter just the other day, every time I would eat lunch, I would feel like I needed to take a power nap right after, right? And Dr. Peter has a title for me, is the king of power naps. And that was me, 14 minutes and 5 seconds every time, right? Almost every single day. And I was like, yeah, I'm really efficient at this. And when I get up, I feel great. But it wasn't until I started with this protocol and started with digestive enzymes, I went to him just the other day and I said, Dr. Peter, I feel like every time I eat now, I actually have energy. And I don't just feel like I need to go to sleep all the time, right? So if you're always having those crashes, maybe you need to think about how well are you breaking down your food. So what our digestive enzymes have is it has all of the enzymes that are necessary to help break your food down. So it has enzymes to help break down proteins into amino acids. It has lipase to break down the lipids or the fats. It has even lactase to help break down any dairy that's there, and amylase to help break down some of the more complex carbohydrates. So do you need to be on digestive enzymes for the rest of your life? No. Is there a time and a place to help your gut so it's not constantly inflamed, to give it just a little bit to heal? Yes. And so while we're removing these interferences in these food sources, we're also going to add in digestive enzymes. That's the first thing you should write down as far as supplements for the remove phase is get a good digestive enzymes at least for the first 30 to 60 days.
So we're going to avoid the top 5, and then the first supplement we're going to add for this 90-day protocol is a digestive enzyme. You can naturally get them from your fruits. The catch-22 with fruits is while we're healing, we want to really reduce our glycemic load. And so fruits long-term, when you're in a vibrant, healthy state, normally are great, right? They're great sources like pineapple. But you cannot eat them like in a juice and expect to get the enzymes you need. And you cannot, sometimes they are just putting you over the edge. So what are we going to eat? You told me, you took everything I love away from me. What am I going to eat? I think I'm just going to starve to death. Well, the reality is you're already starving to death. Right? Spade's a spade, right? We're not getting any nutrients in our body. So how could we not be starving to death if we're just eating edible food-like substances? If we all just ate real food, so that's what we're going to learn to do, then there would be no field called nutrition. It would just be called food. So again, this is not going to be overwhelming. We're going to eat food. So we're all going to make a commitment to leave here and eat food. So number 1, we're going to eat food by God or avoid food by science. So just simply believe whatever you want about who made the food. It's food that grows from a ground. It's not made in a plant. If you flip over the ingredients of an apple, what does it say? Apple. Right? When you flip over the ingredients of your apple chips baked on the gluten-free aisle or whatever it is, what is on the ingredients list? Like the 25th thing is apple, followed by a bunch of chemicals that you can't pronounce. right? Your body doesn't, you don't recognize those chemicals in your brain, and neither does your body. So what does it do with chemicals it can't recognize? Toxifies, gets sick, right? Okay, so we're gonna eat food by God, avoid food by science. Number 2, we're gonna skip the sugar and the alternatives, right? You have enough sugar in your food. You have enough carbohydrates, glycemic load in your food. You don't need it in your salads, in your ketchups, in your salsas, in your desserts. It just fuels inflammation calories. And what we know is that adipose tissue, if you guys all can grab a little bit of extra something here, right? That is sugar, excess sugar that you don't need, but really what's stored in the adipose tissue is toxins. It's all toxins. And so the reason that your toxins are stored in that extra tissue that you might not want is that your body is very intelligent. And intelligent design is keeping it away from the heart and your lungs and from your internal organs. It's keep pulling it away. So many of us have tried to lose weight and failed for years. And the reason we haven't been able to is because our hormones are a wreck. And the reasons our hormones are a wreck is because we're filled with toxins. And so starting to count toxins will immediately change your life, your energy, and your vitality, allow your gut to heal, et cetera, instead of counting calories. So what are we gonna eat? We're going to eat as many healthy fats as possible. If we're gonna eat dairy, we're gonna have full fat dairy. I would really, on this plan, I would really try and do like sugar-free, organic, grass-fed yogurt would probably be the only, or kefir would be the only thing I would eat in the dairy department. Organic grass-fed animal proteins, whole grains and ancient grains, variety of fruits and vegetables, plant-based carbohydrates. So if you'll notice, this is called the core plan. There's really no restrictions here. We're just taking away the non-food, right? Shop in the periphery of the grocery store. We have a Nutrition 101 coming up. That's why we're going through this quick. But really, we're just switching for 30 days. The first 30 days and the first R should last for 30 days. We're just eating real food for 30 days. Can we do that? Right? That means even your bread, right? So I didn't take bread totally away. Your ancient grains, your sprouted grains, but you got to flip that bread over and make sure there's not other ingredients that you don't recognize in, right? Everything else should not have ingredients list for 30 days.
Yeah, so just real quick, we know about toxins. We talked about it. We know that, if you guys wash your vegetables, why do they say wash your vegetables? To get the toxins off. But what we know about pesticides is that the majority of pesticides are fat soluble. They're not water soluble. They wouldn't spray it. So when the rain comes, it washes away. It's fat soluble. It's like oils. So I don't know if you guys have ever had like coconut oil on your hand or something. You try to stick it under the water. Does the coconut oil leave? No, right? So I'm not saying to not wash your vegetables. I'm saying you have to choose organic vegetables. You have to choose things that don't have those oil-based pesticides in them. And so there is a list of the toxins you're exposed to. We do have a whole webinar on this that you can get more in detail. But again, we have to consume fewer toxins, and that's even in our personal products and the things that we cook with, and deodorant, shampoo, things like that. It can be overwhelming. Don't make it overwhelming. Ask Mary for our toxins webinar. We have a good 45 minutes where we go into the top toxins.
The Living Home out there makes it super simple for you guys. You should visit, talk to her. Hey, the number one thing I would switch in the toxin category, other than eating real food, because that's where most of our toxins is your water. You guys should look up what's in the Austin water supply. It's terrible. I find gasoline additives in people's tests all the time from our water.
Plastic.
That's not allowed in gasoline anymore. Different plastic chemicals, as if you guys all worked in plastic plants that are in people's testing. And so you need a little filter. Carbon filter is not enough. You really need a multi-stage filter to get these toxins and chemicals out of your water supply. So the good news is, we're not fragile teacups. We're incredible, thriving, healing human beings. We're the only living life, like animals and plants are the only thing that resists the natural forces of nature. We don't wear away like rocks do. We actually adapt and we thrive. That's the definition of health, returning to homeostasis. So we have this pathway to get rid of toxins. We're gonna heal the gut. In the first 30 days, we have to have some focus on the liver. So the supplement that really helps with this is called NAC. You guys may have heard about this in the last 30 days with the whole COVID thing, but NAC is the precursor to a molecule called glutathione. And so glutathione in the body is the body's main antioxidant or detoxifier. And so when you think about the toxins in your blood supply, Dr. Cody, we have this bombardment of toxins. But thankfully, when we have healthy glutathione levels from actually, believe it or not, organic grass-fed meats, and even that whey protein, that's why we highlighted it, also your cruciferous vegetables, and healthy fats, your body produces healthy amounts of glutathione. But where does the problem show up?
Yeah, the problem shows up when our body cannot create it effectively or fast enough, or when there are too many toxins. You've heard of, so glutathione is our body's major antioxidant. They call it the mother antioxidant. It's actually very hard to absorb. Broccoli has a large amount of it. It has a large amount of the precursors, but it's very hard to absorb, and that's why you need to take the precursor for it, which is N-acetylcysteine, or NAC for short. So if you're wanting to increase your body's ability to detox effectively, it's better to give your body the pre-constituents so that it can make it itself, versus just giving your body free glutathione, like a free pass, right? You want to give it the pre-constituents so that it can make it itself.
Cleaning out the liver and being able to support the liver actually helps then the small intestines. We talked about the small intestine bacterial overgrowth. So once your liver is not piling up more toxins, then your small intestines has an opportunity to heal. So how do we deal with, I don't really have a slide for this, but how do we deal with this small intestinal bacterial overgrowth? Like what you're saying, okay, Dr. Peter, I think I have SIBO, I think I have Candida, I think I have that overgrowth. We're actually going to take a combination of different herbs, and remember that S. boulardii that we saw that cool video of, right? That's in our Pure Path yeast. That's actually all it is. I know yeast can be a scary word for some people. It's just S. boulardii. It's that one, the most studied probiotic out there that's going to help kill off the bad. And then our GI Balance has a combination of herbs. If you want to learn more about herbs, you should check out Zoe Well back there. There are herbalists and acupuncturists, but we give you a combination of herbs that's going to help kill off the bad bacteria. We're going to make sure we're taking those four things, the GI Balance, the Pure Path yeast to kill off the bad stuff, the digestive enzyme, and then the pro-N-acetylcysteine, or NAC, in the first 30 days, right? That's how we're going to detox, and we're going to kill the bad stuff. And right away in those first 30 days, you're gonna feel some energy come back as you're detoxing and killing the bad stuff. But here's the problem: if you're taking these fancy supplements, but you're just filling up your bucket with more toxins, you can't heal, right? So we're gonna eat what? Real food. Gosh, I went to the seminar and I learned that I need to eat real food. People are gonna look at you like they have 3 heads, but it'll change your life. So we're gonna detox, improve our gut. Here's some great foods I love to incorporate. You guys, if you had the smoothie, had organic grass-fed whey protein. Also, your healthy animal proteins are very high. They convert to glutathione at a really high level. Broccoli is an example of a cruciferous veggie. Yes, you should eat your broccoli. Cauliflower, bok choy. Your healthy nuts and seeds, healthy sorts of proteins. Berries, anything that ends in Aries is low glycemic. You would have had blueberries and strawberries in your smoothies, and blackberries.
Except for cherries.
Except for cherries.
That's the only exception.
They are good for some other things. But, and then avocados are an example of the healthy fats, right? And we're gonna talk more about healthy fats in a second. All right, so our first 30 days, super simple. We're gonna take those 4 supplements. We're gonna eat real food. It's not restrictive. We're gonna turn the Facebook crap off. We're gonna remove the negative mindset. The second month, this is very important. This is when we're gonna repair the gut wall. This starts actually in the mucosal membranes in the mouth all the way down to where you poop. We're gonna start healing that. So how are we gonna do it? These next 30 days is when we get a little bit more restrictive. Good news is you just spent the last 30 days learning how to eat real food. And those first 28 days of that period, your insulin receptors have healed now. That's pretty cool. 28 days, insulin receptors heal, your pancreas is healing, which is a big part of this digestive process. Cortisol has decreased significantly. So now we're gonna go to the next level. We're gonna tighten up our food a little bit more. So all that means is we're gonna do the same thing as the core plan. We're gonna eat real foods, but we're gonna take out the grains, especially the gluten ones, and we're going to eat low sugar fruits and berries. Why is this? Your body just needs a break. It needs a break to heal. So if we're gonna be repairing these gut linings, we wanna take out anything that's causing inflammation, right? And excess glucose that's not utilized in the body is gonna cause inflammation. So the advanced plan, our books are out there, chapter 4, talks about nutrition, and Appendix A and B shows you the difference between the core plan and the advanced plan. If you're a patient, you should have one. If you don't have one, we'll give you one for free. If you're making an appointment, we'll also give you one. Of course, could probably purchase them too. They're amazing. So anyway, it's going to differentiate it for you. It's super simple. We're just going to cut out grains. It's just 30 days. You guys can do it. Berries. You should already have changed by this time a lot of the bacteria. You've killed off all the bad bacteria in your gut, or the majority of it. So you're not craving the same things that you used to crave. I had a patient come in recently, and he said, I don't even like the smell of processed foods anymore. It's like gross to me. I didn't even know processed foods had a smell, but apparently they do. And when his kids come up to him and they say, hey, do you want to try it? You want to try this like Snickers bar or something? He's like, he says, no, I don't eat fake food, right? Come on, we can do this, right? That's how it should be. Dad, step up. All right, so what do we take to heal this gut lining? So what we want, remember in that video, we saw like this covering with the Aspergillosis of the gut as it healed. I don't know if you guys remember that, but you're supposed to have this mucosal lining, and it's a little different from the stomach to the liver. But these are the herbs that we like to take. Licorice, slippery elm, also marshmallow. Yes, you can eat it, or you can roast it over fire, but marshmallow root is actually one of the most incredible healing herbs out there to help restore this mucosal lining. This is often where people are missing. They've removed the junk for a period of time. They've maybe even killed off the bad bacteria, but most people don't realize that you actually have to restore this mucosal lining, which means you can't be eating excess sugar and toxins while you're doing it. You really need your body to have a break. It's very exhausting to break down food. Right, so our flagship product for Gut Renew, we had a GI specialist who actually treats disease for GI. We're not treating disease, right? We're promoting health. He checked out our Gut Renew product, and he's like, I cannot believe how amazing. It's like everything I would recommend to somebody in one supplement, but this Gut Renew powder is what has slippery elm, it has aloe vera in it, it has our glutamine in it, it has our marshmallow, not the one you roast over fire, it has our cat's claw, it has our MSM, quercetin, that's been popular lately. So anyway, Gut Renew is gonna have all those ingredients in it. The next thing, so that Gut Renew is used not in the first 30 days, but the second 30 days. Okay, unless you're doing just a 30-day reset, and then we can just jump into it right away. You should only do the 30-day reset, again, if you don't have symptoms. Am I still going? Yep. Okay, so omega-3 fatty acids. This is key. I think this research paper is coming. Yeah, okay, so dietary omega-3 fatty acids, these are the healthy fats that you need to promote health. So the average American you should have a 4-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acid ratio. Omega-6 are healthy ones are found in like almonds. Omega-3s are like, traditionally we think of like our wild-caught salmon, right? The average American, because of our conventional diet, has about a 50-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. So we're super inflamed. Guess what? A big cause of that is your processed foods, that's high, and then your sick cows, or your sick chickens, or your sick eggs, your sick dairy. So if a cow is sick, it has very high omega-6 fatty acid ratios in the meat, and that's why, like, we learned as a society, don't eat the fat of these animals because it'll make you sick. It's because we're eating sick fatty acids, so you get sick. So what's beautiful, though, is what we've learned from the research is that when you get those ratios back of omega-3s to omega-6s, when you start actually eating fat doesn't make you fat, right? It's bad fat that makes you fat, or the inability to burn fat that makes you fat. When you start eating these healthy fats, not only do you lose weight and feel better, but your genes, the gene expression from disease switches to health. My grandfather died of heart disease. My mom died of cancer. So I can sit in my chair and I can complain about how my genetics are setting me up to a lifetime of disease, or I can step into health and say, that's not gonna be me, right? Because I have control over my health. And what we know is that our genes load the gun, but it's our environment that pulls the trigger. That means you have a choice. That means you have control, and you can actually activate or deactivate, like ones and zeros in a computer, your genetic composition. You're not a victim of your genes. It's pretty powerful.
So first 30 days is to remove. Second 30 days is to repair, and the last 30 days is to re-inoculate, right? So by now, you should have gotten good enough bacteria in your gut. Now, you've heard of probiotics, right? And again, we talked about antibiotics. Anytime you're doing an antibiotic, you definitely need to do probiotics after. But if you've lived in 2020 and 2021 with hand sanitizers, you also need a probiotic. But as Dr. Peter said, the average life of a bacteria can be as little as 20 minutes. And what does that mean? It means that the internal environment will determine how good of the reproductive cycle of the good bacteria will be. And so we really want to, number one, in this phase, give our body the proper bacteria that's there. So this phase is all about let's take what's there, let's make a few modifications, but the majority of it is actually helping to feed these good bacteria. So we're going to start with probiotics, and in our probiotics, there's actually that bacteria, which is S. boulardii, exactly what you saw, all the benefits of it, of helping your body expel pathogens, helping your body absorb the appropriate nutrients. And what they also said in that video is that it acts as like a groundskeeper for your gut, and it makes sure that all the other bacteria are doing exactly what they're supposed to be, and that there's not anything else there.
Can I say something real quick? A lot of us have tried probiotics after we've taken an antibiotic, right? All of us know to do this. It's not new news. The problem is you haven't done the other 60 days of work, right? So it's those other two, and then the 50 billion probiotic we have. Typically, we want our food to rot, but when it comes to a probiotic, Dr. Cody, we want it to make it past the stomach.
Yeah, so the stomach acid is extremely acidic, and there's not much that should be able to make it past it, but the reason why a lot of probiotics are in the refrigerated aisle is because they're not shelf stable. And a lot of those don't have what's called an enteric coating, or a coating on the outside of the probiotic to actually make it to where it needs to go. So you don't want to buy probiotics and have it stop here when it needs to actually get to here. All right, so our probiotics do that. And so there's been, I mean, if you go to PubMed, which is like, you know, where a lot of the research is, and you start looking at all these articles, there's thousands of articles relating the health of your probiotics to the health of your body. Here's one that is with type 2 diabetes, right? My dad was a type 2 diabetic. It like hits me right here when he didn't make a change for years and years and years. But one thing that I had him do was take probiotics. And the bacteria inside of your gut can actually change your taste buds. So sometimes in order to change your gut bacteria, you need to eat the things that you don't usually like eating so that your gut bacteria can be populated with good bacteria, and then it goes back to helping you eat the foods that should have been enjoyable all along, but it might not have been there. The next, Dr.
I was going to say, one of my favorite books, you guys can write it down, it's called The Microbiome Diet. It's by Kellerman, maybe, MD. Mm-hmm. He likes to say, it's not your fault that you crave those foods. It's because you have literally a world of like sugar-feeding bacteria in your body. And so when you guys go through this 3-hour process, you're going to kill those off, and you're actually going to crave what you actually need to live. It's pretty beautiful.
Yeah. So we're going to add the probiotics in. We're also going to add prebiotics. So who here is sort of prebiotics? What the heck is prebiotics? Awesome. So a few people. So the prebiotics are what your probiotics eat, right? How do your probiotics like reproduce and do all this stuff? A stork doesn't deliver them, but they actually eat certain things, right? And so these foods that are considered prebiotics are full of fiber. So when we talk about the only thing that should make it to your colon or your large intestine is the fiber, which is the undigested part. It's like when you're juicing and all the juice goes here, where does all of the stalks and everything go, right? That's all the fibrous portion that you need to have in your foods. But 90% of Americans are deficient in fiber, which is why we are on the fast track to colon cancer, and why now it's 1 in every 20 individuals will be diagnosed with colon cancer at some point in their life, is because of the lack of fiber. So in order when you're taking the probiotics, in order to continue the probiotics legacy, in order to have it for the rest of your life, again, you have to help feed them, and that's exactly what the prebiotics do. And so you want to put these two together, and together they're actually called symbiotics. And so our fiber supplement, which we're going to add in on the last 30 days also, takes all of those together. So the fiber is the thing that your probiotics will eat in order for you to continue to build health and continue to help build a strong immune system.
I didn't realize how hard it was. Like, you know, everyone's like, yeah, you need a certain amount of fiber. Do you remember how much? 35 grams fiber. He's like my numbers guy. 35 grams of fiber a day, and so there's an RDA of that. Yeah, you need fiber, great. I'm a little constipated, I must not be pooping much. But this really helped me open my eyes to how bad processed food is. We're robbing the fiber of our diet. We're robbing our bacteria. We can take all the probiotics in the world, but if there's not an environment for them to grow and thrive, like we're just wasting our time. So it does take a little bit of work. You do need to supplement it because none of us eat enough veggies to really get the fiber intake that we need for a minimum RDA for survival, let alone to build health. You don't have to supplement fiber forever, but I would recommend it in these first 90 days. So let's wrap this up because let's talk about action. So there's a 3-step process to heal your gut, but there's really a 3-step process to heal anything. It's that simple, right? It's not an infomercial. It's just your body is amazing. It's really amazing, right? So number 1, we're going to identify the cause. That sounds a lot like remove, right? We're going to remove the junk, the toxins, the crap out, right? We're going to kill off the bad bacteria, okay? We're going to stop insulting it with edible food-like substances. What the heck is your body going to do with plastic chemicals? Like, your body doesn't know what to do with that. It can't turn that into a thyroid, right? We're going to address the interferences, right? We're going to actually take the rubber band off, right? It doesn't matter what you've been diagnosed with. Identify the cause, find a doctor that's going to do it. We like to say DC, or Doctor of Chiropractic, stands for Doctor of Cause, right? There's other providers out there that will do it too, but find someone that'll get to the cause. Take your hand off the stove or take your rubber band off. That sounds a lot like the repair phase, right? From the middle R. This is when you really just need to, the best way to think about the repair phase is self-care phase. This is when you need to look at your routine. Wake up in the morning, have a quiet time, write a page of gratitude. I am known for my awesome handwriting. I actually can't even read my own gratitude journal, but I do it anyway. I do it anyway because of what it does for my brain and my heart and my connection with God. I do it anyway. And so, we need to have this routine. You need to take those Epsom salt baths. You need to take a vacation. You need to do what you need to do, but it's not take a vacation from health. It's take a vacation from being fat, sick, and nearly dead. It's from taking a vacation from stress, from the garbage, the toxic thoughts, and the toxic food, the toxic chemicals, right? And then the last thing is we're going to restore vitality. That's a lot like reinoculate. If you don't like that word, it's kind of weird for me too. I think about replace. The third R could also be replace. We're replacing the good bacteria. And so this is what we do when it comes to migraine headaches. This is the same process we take with the gut. This is the same process we take with trying to help the body heal thyroid issue. Again, none of this is the management of disease. That's not what we do. That's the job of medical doctors. There's a short-term time and place for that. But long-term health belongs to this three-step process. So we have, when we look back at this continuum of health, we evaluated where we were on this health. And we couldn't see what the 10 was. And if you'll notice, if you want to become a 10, the action steps, your habit dictating your habitat, that is what makes you a 10. What makes you a 10, and when it comes to your health, a 9 or 10, are great health habits. Not a one-time seminar, not a miracle cure, right? Nothing but the consistent daily habits. That is what allows you to do what you love to do, and more importantly, what you're called to do, because you're living an interference-free lifestyle. You also take responsibility for your health. Well, you don't blame the doctor, you don't blame the insurance company, you don't blame the current president, you don't blame the politicians. Only you are responsible for your health. No one else can be responsible for your health. It's only you. It's your job to be responsible for your health, no one else. Number 3 is if you apply these two things and these habits, you develop a strong health philosophy, right? So no one can come into my office or come into my house and tell my family what we need to do to be healthy. Because I put the work in to develop this strong health philosophy. So I'm not living in fear right now. I'm not living in this wishy-washy worried. I'm evaluating research. I'm evaluating evidence. I'm observing clinical practice. But I have a strong health philosophy. The question is, do you? And if you don't, what does it take to get there? So this gut health bundle, I used to, I realized when we set all these things up, I'm like, I've swore I would never sell supplements, be a supplement sales guy. And it looks like we're selling supplements out there. The reality is because we have to dig ourselves out of a hole. And so you just need some resources to do it. And there's a lot of fraud. There's a lot of there's some really crazy research that's been done and some of the stuff that's been in the supplements in some of these box stores. If you're going to take something to build health, you want to make sure that what you're taking, there's actually what you're buying is actually in it, and it's not making you sicker, right? Does that make sense? So third-party endorsement is the best way to know if what's in your supplement is good. And so I would say all of us, including our team, we're walking away with kind of two choices today. We're either going to do a gut reset, which is this bundle behind me. This is our fiber, our probiotic, our gut renew, and our digestive enzymes. It's just 30 days of eating clean, get a kickstart so that we know that our multivitamin and our nutrients are actually building health. But if you have been dealing with IBS or inability to lose weight or what's called metabolic syndrome. Thank you. I got to talk about this study super fast. These mice had metabolic syndrome. What is metabolic syndrome? Fatty liver disease, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, so type 2 diabetes, bad cholesterol, they're obese. They took the microbiome of these sick mice and they put them in sterile mice, and what did they get? They got metabolic syndrome. Same food, same everything, just the new bacteria in their gut. The coolest part about this study is they took those sick mice, or they took healthy mice, and they put the healthy bacteria in the sick mice, and what happened to them? They got well. Come on, we all need this. We can do this. We can reverse disease, but we got to get to the cause. The other study I'll end on is about community, because we know that health is not done well in isolation. That's why we do these events. It's why we do our dinners, is that what we know about the microbiome is that when you have a group of people that have a healthy microbiome, that microbiome transfers to the sick people just by interacting with them. And it overcomes the sick bacteria and wins, and that community gets healthy even if they don't change their habits, which is kind of weird, and I know it goes against taking responsibility, but they tried to look at the reverse, and they learned that the bad bacteria can't overcome the good bacteria when you have a good microbiome. The dark will never overcome the light. It doesn't work that way. The light will always win. The bacteria, the good bacteria, the way God made it, the way it was designed, will always prevail. And you can actually make a difference on your community's health by saying, I'm going to make a stand, I'm going to be a leader, and I'm going to model what healthcare looks like, because guess what? They're watching. Your family's watching, your friends watching, your kids are watching, right? The reason your kids are picky eaters is because you're a picky eater. The reason your kids are not active is because you're not active, right? It's the reason that our community is struggling when it comes to health is because we haven't taken responsibility over our health. And I'm going to stop because I can go all day long. But when it comes to gut health, we're going to go with these. It's either a 30-day or a 90-day. If you're struggling, you're going to heal. However, I do want to introduce something through the form of a testimony that we have been able to do in our office, and it's not for everybody. But you might be sitting there saying, Dr. Peter, I've tried a lot of these things. I've been on this journey for a long time, and I just need help. Ezra, are you out there? Will you come up? Give Ezra a hand. So we have something called our Max Metabolics program. And at the end of the day, this is when we make the decision, hey, I've been dealing with this for 5, 10, 15 years, and I just am stuck. I just need help, and I don't know where to go. This is where we draw a line in the sand and say, we're not going to guess anymore. We're going to test, right? And we're not looking for disease. We're looking for dysfunction. So we have these metabolic tests. So Ezra, so disclaimer, and the reason I'm asking Ezra to come in is she's just now making it through her first 30 days of a gut protocol. And you were a patient before, and before you came to the office, you tried a lot of things, right?
Yeah, so that scale they had up there, that was really helpful for helping me to measure where I was at for at least over 10 years. I was probably at a 7, maybe a 6.5. As long as I did certain things, I felt pretty good, but I really had to do a lot. I had to work out a lot. I had to eat really healthy. I had to, and I thought, okay, well, this is just life. I went to a lot of doctors. They would always tell me, you're healthy, you're fine. But about 10 months ago, something happened. I went from one day feeling like at a 6.5 or 7 to going to a 1. I was completely, literally one day to the next. I was bedridden. I went to my doctor. Told them what was happening, and she said, I don't know what to give you. I can give you some anti-nausea medication because I was throwing up so much and all that. And I was like, what? Anti-nausea, my body's telling me I need to get rid of something. Why would I want to keep it in there? I don't want to end up in the hospital. And so I'm a Christian, so I just prayed, and I was like, what should I do? And I really felt like it would be a good idea to check out a naturopathic doctor. I found out, I looked for the best one in my area, which was one of the best in the country, and he gave me a protocol that began to help me. And so I followed that for I want to say a good 6-7 months. And so I was getting better, but I felt like the pace was so slow. So about 4 months ago, I started coming to Dr. Cody and Dr. Peter, and I was still at a 3. I was maybe a 2.5. It was better than initially, but not that much better. And so just with the adjustments alone, I went up to, I would say a 4.5. But 30 days ago, I did the metabolic testing. I got the results from that. And the stuff they found in me, it was so weird. I'm like, how did that even get in me? There was toxins and deficiencies and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. And so 30 days into it with the detox thing, I'm shocked at how so many things have changed. And I don't feel comfortable telling you guys all the things that it affected. It affected a lot of stuff, skin, it was awful. But I would definitely say, had I done this years ago, I would have just been living at a 10, so yeah.
Ezra, that's awesome. So I know a couple of things. You talked about energy, just keeping it vague, and you talked about being able to basically 100% increase your ability to work out or walk. So you went from bedridden to walking 2 miles to being able to exercise again. Obviously, she's not bedridden today, and she's healing. But it's been a journey, right? And it took, at the end of the day, it took testing to take her to the next level. And so some of us are stuck. And so if you're stuck, I just want you to know there's answers. You don't have to be stuck, right? And Ezra, I can't wait to hear the rest of your testimony unfold. It's been really, really powerful. But good job just being committed to your health. She has a binder, right? So we got this test, and she is very specific on everything. And because she's so specific, she's getting specific results. You can tell, she's committed. So I have no doubt that she's going to heal because she's committed. She writes down everything, and she's so specific. And we're actually going through this protocol, not just with these supplements and nutrition, but along the way, we've realized that you can be as healthy as you want, or these supplements only work as well as your body is capable to heal. So if you've been dysfunctional metabolically and broken for decades, you have to fix those pathways so you have the oomph and the energy and the pathways to even be able to articulate or to be able to heal, right? Your immune system, if it's broken in half isn't going to heal, right? If your hormone system is broken in half, it's not going to heal. So what's nice about the metabolics testing is it allows us to actually look at your body at the cellular level, and we're actually looking at what particular bacteria is overgrown, what dysbiosis markers do you have, what malabsorption markers, this is not your test, by the way, what yeast overgrowth do you have, what toxins are in your, why is serotonin, why do you feel depressed and beat up, why is your energy low? We're able to actually look at it, and we're able to look at these pathways and come up with a plan in addition to this 90 days to say, hey, let's fix these things. And then honestly, at the end of the day, the best answer is to retest to make sure we've done the job. We can test heavy metals, we can test vitamin and mineral levels, and so that you're not guessing anymore with your supplements. You save tons of money this way and tons of years of life to your years by for the first time in your life knowing what to fix, how to fix it, and you get results. You get incredible results. So thanks, Ezra, for being on this journey. We'll have to do something soon to hear the end story.